Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. Again, another video on the Navalny affair or story. And earlier today, I was talking to Dmitry Babich, and he gave the take from inside of Russia, how Russians see Mr. Navalny and the opposition, where it has been over the last few years and where it stands now, and how this story is impacting how people think about the opposition and Mr. Navalny. So in this video, we have Daniel McAdams. We're going to spread it out a little bit, and I want to look at why this is happening. Daniel, just as before we convened right here, there are some saying that Congress should pass the Navalny Act, more sanctions here, okay? Which is, sanctioning this is like bouncing the rubble. I mean, the U.S.-Russia relationship is basically void right now. Then I don't want it to get any worse, but there's certainly people that do want it to get worse here. My issues are this. I want empirical evidence. The German government, not through doctors. It wasn't doctors that said something. It was governmental officials saying this and saying that it was something like a Novichok related, Novichok-like. What does that mean? What does it mean scientifically? And obviously, the people that are looking at this story most seriously are asking all the same question. Who does this benefit, Daniel?
The other thing is, don't forget, Peter, the level of propagandization in the U.S. is off the Richter scale, and that even includes politicians. In the average American's mind, who even thinks about this at all, which is rare, Navalny is a massive giant of an opposition figure whose numbers are barely below Putin's every election. It's only Putin's cheating that puts him over the top, and that's the idea. Whereas in reality, we who know a little bit about Russia understand that he's a gadfly. He's a media person. He's most likely funded by the CIA or certainly by U.S. government agencies. And he has no popularity in Russia. He's probably, by most people, viewed as a pain in the rear end and as a weirdo. But in the U.S., of course, he's a towering giant. He's the Mahatma Gandhi of Russia. He's MLK Jr. So you have to start with that level of lack of understanding. And I said that earlier in what I just said, but it's important to note that members of Congress share that view. They're no better informed than the average American citizen when it comes to it because they read the same propaganda that the average American reads. They read the Washington Post and New York Times, and that's all the extent of their information. They don't watch Peter Lavelle. They don't read the Saker or whatever. They're just not interested.
What I find really interesting, and we can go back to the Litvinenko case, and that we have the Skripals, and there's always this really huge tension that no one really wants to admit. But I mean, is it Keystone Cops or is it 007 on steroids? I mean, you have to have it one way or the other. They can't both coexist. I mean, if you want to knock someone off, there's a lot of ways to do it. Okay, I mean. And we know from during the Cold War, the CIA and related Western intelligence agencies and the KGB were actually pretty good at doing it. Okay, I mean, what has happened here? Because Novichok apparently doesn't kill very many people.
It's pretty shoddy stuff. It's the deadliest substance on earth. But here we have apparently Navalny's aide hands him a cup of tea. Here, have some tea. Boom, he drinks it down. A few hours later, he's on the plane. Ooh, I'm getting sick. Turn the plane around. So the plane, is allowed to turn around, is allowed to land, is allowed to take him to the airport. Someone else wrote, there's no mysterious, car traffic where he couldn't get to the airport. Then he's in the hospital for how long? Several days. If the KGB wanted to off him, couldn't they have pulled something out? Or apparently he's a pretty serious diabetic. Maybe throw a Twinkie at him or something. There's so many ways. And then, we want to go to Germany. Okay, go ahead, go to Germany. So if the Russians have poisoned him with the deadliest substance in the history of the universe, and it's carousing through his body, why would they say, yeah, send him off to Germany? This sounds like a good idea. The fact that he was allowed to go to Germany, I think is the most convincing argument that the Russian government hadn't done a single thing to him. Otherwise, as I think it was the Saker wrote, they're the most incompetent people in government in the history of the world.
Yeah, but obviously, if this substance was used, then the doctors would find it. Okay, okay, fine, and I'll take it at face value here. Can we see the evidence? And they're very resistant in doing that here, and that's what turns it into a political issue because we all know. Again, I suppose a very small number of people have heard of Nord Stream, the underwater gas pipeline, which is a very important issue for Merkel, for many in German industry, because it's essentially not just Germany's energy security, but Europe's energy security here. And of course, the United States wants to dictate that. Why, for any rational reason, other than they want the Europeans to buy very expensive liquefied gas from the United States, okay, and not from Russia. I would posit is that it does have a lot to do with Nord Stream, and as the United States is totally absorbed with the election, it's time to rally the NATO allies to remember where their place is in the alliance. Your take?
I think that's a great point. I think certainly in the U.S., the neocons, for lack of a better word, are very, very good at using a crisis or at using the attention being drawn by something else as a way to put their agenda forth. And the United States government is not, and the U.S. foreign policy does not act in the interest of the American people, and that's the worst part of the whole thing. Whether you're talking Obama and even Trump, you have a cabal of people who are basically, they'll drop a bomb on you if you don't do what they say. If you do what they say, you have to blow up this oil pipeline because we're going to sell you some gas for 4 times as much. Hope you're happy, Germany. This sort of thing. But yeah, I think the Nord Stream pipeline is important. I think the issue of punishing Russia over Belarus is important, over the failed color revolution or failing color revolution and the resulting backlash of perhaps a closer relationship between Minsk and Moscow. And the third would be that I think is maybe the most important, or certainly on equal par, is U.S. determination, authored by Pompeo and the neocons, to snap back sanctions on Iran. We already saw meetings over this past week with the UK, with Germany, meeting with China and Russia. They want to find a way to prevent the U.S. from doing the snapback in just a few days' time. And this is a perfect opportunity for the neocons to say, see, you want to go in the Russian camp, this is what you're going to get. They poison everyone they don't like. So I think that's also a very big issue.
I think also it's latent Russiagate as well, because to show Russia as a malign actor in the world. Okay, see, we told you. We told you. I think all of those things together play a role, and this is an interesting catalyst here because. The Skripals, someone told me that Navalny has been Skripaled. Okay, yeah. I thought that was an interesting take. But we never heard from the Skripals again. We didn't even know where they are. We don't know if they're in a place against their own will. If they're happy with the way they are, why can't we hear from them? And I think the interesting question will be, will we hear from Navalny now? Because as far as I understand, he hasn't broken any laws, so he could come home if he wants to. And I think he would just be a Russian nobody that everyone should know in the West, according to Western media. Okay, I don't think he's under any kind of threat here. And I think a lot of people don't understand is that he's built his career on being the anti-corruption guy, and he's made many claims about government officials and business people as well. So if in fact there has been a poisoning, we need to see the evidence of it. And I don't think it's fair to jump to a conclusion that a government, there could be other actors involved that would want to harm him, all right? Because he's a big mouth. He's on YouTube a lot, or he's on the Russian internet a lot. And yeah, he's annoying to a lot of people, but he's certainly not a threat. His currency has gone down in years. And again, to put this all into context, which Western media never does, is that he was on for the vast majority of Russians, he was on the wrong side of the Ukraine story. He was on the wrong side of the Crimea story because he doesn't look patriotic. He doesn't look like he cares about Russia's national interests.
It probably does the bidding of his paymasters as well. But, it's effective because you establish the narrative in the U.S. that Putin is so mad. He's such a despicable character that he will do anything, even use completely worthless nerve gas on people over and over again, because he's also stupid. He's ultra competent and he's ultra incompetent at the same time. Which is something out of 1984, right? The whole two completely contradictory views at the same time. But it seems to be working because Merkel said just today, as Navalny has miraculously emerged from his coma. I know it was a chemically induced coma, but you can imagine what he'll say now. I don't think if I'm Navalny and I'm living pretty good on some Western paychecks, I don't think it was such a smart move if he did go along with this, because I don't think he'll be able to go back to the status quo after this. If when he starts talking, he talks about the horrible Putin regime trying to kill him. I think he may have made his bed. Maybe he wants to retire in Berlin. Maybe he's sick of being the gadfly in Russia. But he's out of his coma. And Merkel has said today for the first time that she's looking at the pressure from her own party to either do some sanctions on Russia or to even stop work on the pipeline on Nord Stream 2. Now, if this narrative keeps pushing, it's very bad for Germany. It's very bad for Russia. It's bad for security in the region, but it's very great for U.S. well-connected oil companies.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, natural gas doesn't have a natural predetermined consumer. That natural gas will go somewhere else. It could go to China. It could go to many other places. I mean, what it does is it damages. I mean, Germany is doing this for a reason. It's not. They're not doing it as it's not the Nord Stream is not a political issue. It's an economic issue, and a very important one. As Germany doesn't have nuclear power, wants to stay away from coal. Natural gas is your natural alternative here, and we have all of these economies right now during this economic turndown. You need cheap energy to keep your economies going. I mean, Merkel, we'll see if she'll cave under the pressure here, but it will not be in her economic interest, because this was always a separate issue. I mean, maybe Merkel is saying that to keep her Western counterparts happy, but I still seriously doubt that she will cancel this. Maybe, the upcoming tractor fair in Dresden will be canceled or something like that. Okay, but I would be really surprised and really disappointed if she were to go that far.
Yeah, but she is also on her way out politically.
Yep.
I mean, she's at the end of her career, so maybe she's looking for a nice sinecure in her retirement. You never know. But I hope you're right. I mean, I would just say that it's not a political issue in Europe, but it certainly is in the United States. And that's the real thing. Remember, Germany was not that enthusiastic about going along with the U.S. pressure on Belarus. It was really primarily Poland and Lithuania who wanted the U.S. and NATO and everyone to get involved. So maybe this is also some punishment to Germany for not getting that enthusiastic about a color revolution. Who knows? But I hope you're right, Peter, that they cancel that tractor fair in Dresden.
Okay. Well, what? Let's leave on this since you mentioned Belarus. They have a union treaty, Belarus and Russia. In a legal sense, it is one country. So I think that if when you look at from the Russian point of view, now you want to bring your colored revolution playbook to home, you better think twice, because we know how it works and we know how to push back. Yeah, I agree. But I'll say this too, is that ending this is that I certainly wouldn't mind to see the backside of Mr. Lukashenko. Okay. Daniel, thank you very much for joining the gaggle here. We're going to keep an eye on this story here. If Mr. Navalny surfaces and has something to say, I hope you come back and chat with us.
Love to do so.
Okay, please like and share and subscribe. Thank you very much. We have a lot more ahead.